Okay, well, welcome to the Vibrant Club workshop. My name is Yasser Murga. I am the governor-elect, and we are all thrilled to see everyone here today, eager to learn about becoming a more vibrant club. There's a lot of agenda, and we got the A team here. We got Sunny, we got Jen, we got Governor Haas, we got Eric, Jeff, Tom Simon. So it's going to be a great, great event today. So why is having a vibrant club important? Because ultimately it serves, and I borrowed this from Governor nominee Tom Simon, is it's a magnet for engagement. So it engages members in meaningful projects, creates positive impacts, and builds strong connections among individuals. And it ultimately leads to a more closely knit and compassionate society, right? So in essence, a vibrant club acts like a magnet. It attracts positive energy, enthusiasm, makes a lasting difference in our community. And what's interesting is we place a lot of emphasis on membership, but we hear this all the time. Membership is ultimately a byproduct of what a vibrant club is. So I'm here more to listen to everyone and learn from everyone. So thank you for being part of the discussion and making this workshop a truly enriching experience. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our district governor nominee. He has a new title now. We'll hand it over to Tom Simon, who will tell us more about what we can expect today. So take it away, Tom.
All right, thank you, Yasser. Much appreciated. Luckily, Rotary International has given us a framework with which to understand what it means to become or be a vibrant club. All of you that are here today are in a Rotary Club that is in various stages of vibrancy. And so this is really a journey that we'll take together today, this morning, to become a more vibrant club. And Rotary International has given us a framework for that. It's one that past district governor Sunny is included in some of her correspondence. And one of the pages is called Start Your Club on a Path to Vibrancy. And we're going to be using that as the framework. In a few minutes, we're going to ask Eric to provide us some tips about being on Zoom. And then we're going to ask District Governor Richard to give us some opening remarks. And Jeff Weinrich is going to walk us through kind of 30,000 foot level of that Start Your Club on a Path to Vibrancy. Once that's done, we'll probably take a short break and then move into breakout rooms and dig in a little bit more into some of the details of becoming a more vibrant club. So thank you all for coming. I love that you're here and that we're all together on a Saturday morning. Over to you, Eric.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to share my screen real quick and we'll get started just with a short Zoom etiquette. I'm sure through the pandemic, you have all seen slides like this a million times, but it's never a bad idea to see it one more. So please make sure we can see your face. If you've got a camera, we'd love to see you. Please keep yourself muted unless you're speaking, so we cut out all the background noise, and use the chat to ask questions, and we'll monitor that and address it as we go. So in your little square above your picture, there's a little 3 dots at the top. If you would rename yourself to your name, your position, and your club, so we know where you're from and what you're doing. If you don't know how to do that, type your information in the chat and we will get you fixed up as we go. And then please raise your hand if you have a question. Down at the bottom of your screen, you should see reactions, and you should be able to raise your hand so we can ask you. The chat is going to be on the right-hand side of your screen. Make sure you're typing to everyone so we can all see what you're asking. And if you need to ask a particular person, you can click on them and see that. And that's it. We are good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Turn it over to, I guess, Richard.
To Richard, yes.
All right, I was looking for my mouse. I got those multiple screens, and every once in a while that mouse hides from me. Welcome. Thanks for being here this morning. Your participation shows already your enthusiasm and commitment to your club and its success. We hope you enjoy this session and are able to take some ideas back to your own clubs. As you move through the Rotary year, you're going to hear me talk about or mention 3 C's that kind of underpin our Rotary service and fellowship. And I'm just going to mention those real quick. Eric said I had like 45 minutes to talk, but then he threw all that etiquette stuff in there, so I trimmed this down to like 2 minutes. But the 3 C's are that I'd like for you to consider are, number one, our Rotary theme this year, which is create hope in the world. You can look at that as creating hope worldwide through Rotary International, creating hope in your district, in your club, in your community, in your block. You can just keep drilling down, but keep that in mind as we move through the year. Also keep in mind that we're all connected. That's the next C, is connections. And a lot of times we don't realize how connected we are until we start actually talking to one another. And I think you'll be surprised to learn how many connections you already have, and you just don't realize it. But those connections are important because that builds strength with your club, with your ideas, and with your goals. And finally, don't forget to collaborate with one another. That's the final C. Too often, clubs like to, I was going to say practice, like to exist in silos. They don't really talk to the club around the corner from them or across town from them. And I really feel like, again, that we will strengthen our clubs and our district if we start collaborating with one another. As our immediate past RI representative said, and Vicki Pewlett said, if you see a good idea, there's nothing wrong with stealing that idea. So that really sounded bad, didn't it? Borrowing that idea. Anyway, so again, a big thank you to you for being here, and a big thank you to our energetic district training team. I think you're going to enjoy the session. Good morning.
Okay, well, thank you, Richard. I think we'd like to move to Jeff. Are you there? Yes, you are.
All right, well, welcome everyone. And this is, we've done a number of these Be a Vibrant Club workshops over the years, but I believe this is the first one where, as District Governor nominee Tom mentioned, we're going to be using breakout rooms. And so just a little bit about that, and then we're going to do some polls. So there are 10 items that we're going to cover in this Be a Vibrant Club workshop, but having 10 breakout rooms was not practical. So we're splitting the 10 different items into 3 categories. One of them is club infrastructure. One of them is member engagement. And the third is planning and goals. And so once we finish this plenary session, you will be going into these breakout rooms, and you'll go into each one for like a half an hour. And in that breakout room, you'll have a chance to kind of take a deep dive into each of the elements that we want to cover. So the format for today is a little bit different than what we've done before, but given the size of the group, we thought this would be a more practical way of going through the material. So that'll happen in about 45 minutes or so. In the meantime, Eric, would you like to bring up the first poll question? And if I recall, when we're recording, the people who are watching the recording don't see the questions. So go ahead and complete the poll, but I will mention what the question is, and then we'll look at the responses. So it's on a scale of 1 to 5. How vibrant do you feel your club is currently? And the second question is, which of the following areas do you feel your club excels in? And the final question is, which of the following areas do you feel your club struggles in? So please go ahead and answer the questions, and Eric will give us a cue when there's enough responses, and then we will look at the results. And as I think the poll indicated, those 10 areas where we asked about where you felt the club is strong and where it can improve, those are the 10 areas we're going to be covering today. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and kind of show you this Vibrant
Jeff.
Club document. Again, this will be a high-level view.
Jeff, one thing. Sandy
Yes.
had her hand raised. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sandy. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I find it pervasive in our district that folks, even though they have good intentions, never set their goals or get into talking with their board members through their committees on what their goals should be. And it's just such a great tool. And I think we really need to press for that, for people to use it more.
Excuse me. Totally agree. And we've been promoting and reinforcing club goals and strategic plans for years. And we're seeing improvements in our district, but it's been kind of slow. I don't know if Richard has the data or Yasser, but do we know at this point? So now we're in August. So all the clubs should have goals in Rotary Club Central and so on. Do we have a sense of how many clubs have goals in Rotary Club Central by any chance?
The last data I saw, it was about 32% of the district clubs
Okay.
had their goals listed.
So kind of to reinforce Sandy's point, we're already a month into the Rotary year, and most of the clubs don't have goals, or at least they don't have goals documented. And for those of us who promote goals in our businesses, it's like, if they're not documented, they're just wishes and aims, and they're in the clouds. So totally agree. Any other feedback or insight about the poll? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I want to make sure that this works. Are you all seeing Be a Vibrant Club, your club leadership plan with 2 happy Rotarians and a few in the background also? Okay. So this document came out, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. And I like it because it's only 4 pages. The second and third page are kind of a story about a particular club, and it's interesting, but every Rotary club is different. But it's not a bad idea to kind of just take a look at it and maybe think about it a little bit. But the working part of the Be a Vibrant Club document is this 4th page, and these are the 10 items that we asked about in the poll. There are the 10 items that we're going to be covering in the 3 breakout rooms. Sunny or Eric, everyone received a copy of this. Is that correct?
Yes, and I also just put it in the chat if you didn't get it in the email.
Okay, perfect. So a couple things about this particular page, which is not intuitive, is that anything that's in bold is a hyperlink. Usually we're used to seeing, if we have a document like it's blue, a blue font with an underline. In this document, it's the items in bold. So there are quite a few documents that are referred to that are really interesting. Some of them we're very familiar with, some of them are ones we may not be that familiar with. So part of what we're going to be doing when we, oh, zoom in. Okay. Thank you. I will do that. So I'll do that and then scroll a little bit so you can see the different ones. So again, each item, if there's something in bold, you can see it kind of suggests there's a hyperlink. In most cases, the hyperlink will take you to a document that is in the Rotary.org website. In a few cases, it takes you to an actual web page within the website, like the brand center here. So when you get the document, it's good to have it in electronic format so you can click on those hyperlinks and see those other documents. And again, we'll go through those in the breakout sessions. The ones, there was a few that do not have hyperlinks, and that's fine. But I want to make sure you're aware of that because it is definitely not intuitive.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yes.
Another thing that's not intuitive is, or at least it wasn't for me, is that yes, it brings you to a document, but it brings you to a page, a Rotary page that's essentially blank. And the document gets downloaded onto your computer. So you'll be looking, I mean, initially when I did it, I was looking for the document. I wasn't seeing it. I was getting this blank Rotary page. It's downloading that document to your computer, and then that's where you'll find it. And wherever, either go to your download folder, or it should be in your system tray or something, wherever your downloads end up on your computer.
That's a good point, Tom. Thank you. So our suggestion is that if this document and being a vibrant club is something that you want to pursue after today, that you go ahead and just download the documents and have them in your directory so you can just pull them up when you need to. And again, we'll go through those in our breakout sessions. So one point, and it was already mentioned when we started, these 10 items are not necessarily intended to be viewed independently. They overlap. They're integrated. So even though we're going to be in 3 breakout rooms, you're going to see linkages between these various items. And so if you're a club, and as Sandy pointed out, the goals and strategic planners were kind of low. The notion, I think, is that if we all put more emphasis in goal setting and having a strategic plan, it will directly affect or even reinforce many of these other items anyway. So a strategy, if you want to improve your vibrancy, is to really think about the whole set of 10 and say, well, if we improve or put more emphasis on 1 or 2 of these, what likely effects will it have on the other ones? Does that make sense? They're connected. And in all likelihood, your club is going to have people or committees who kind of have these items in their purview. So it's important for committee members to be thinking about these linkages as well. Otherwise, we're going to have silos, and silos can still work, but you're missing a lot of opportunity if everything stays separate. Any questions, feedback, thoughts on that? So think about these. I like to think about them as like an ensemble. And I think when we get into the breakout rooms, you'll see even more of some of these key connections. One other thing that came up as we were putting this workshop together is that there's items that you don't necessarily see here that we know are important to Rotary clubs. So for example, public image is really important, right? And Eric has done a great job kind of promoting public image at the district level. but public image is not like one of these 10, but it's embedded in the 10. So things that you may think about, like, why doesn't it have this? Or why didn't we ask about a certain aspect of Rotary that we think is important? Everything that is important to a Rotary Club is embedded in these 10 items. It's just that, and whoever created this document, I think they really did a good job of trying to come up with categories that made sense and that we should be thinking about. So don't be concerned if you think there's something important that's not explicitly shown here. All right. Are there any questions before we go on? And what we're going to do is we're going to take a very high level look at these 10, and then we're going to take a break. So we've got about a half an hour. The order of the 10 or how they're shown here, I don't think is as important as the 10 themselves. I mean, I remember when we first did the training, we were trying to figure out if there's any relevance to why certain ones were at the top. And I've kind of given up on that. I think they're all just equally relevant. So the first one is what you'd like your club to be like in 3 to 5 years. This is about strategic planning. This is one that we as a group scored fairly low in, if I recall. Not surprising. The strategic planning guide and the Rotary Club health check are two of actually a myriad of documents that the district has, Rotary.org has, to help clubs with strategic planning. We talk about it a lot at president-elect training, that it's really important that clubs have a plan. And it doesn't have to be sophisticated, as long as the club understands where it is going and what it is trying to accomplish. So we will get into a deep dive on strategic planning, as well as we're going to open up and look at these different documents that are hyperlinked. So we'll take a look at those in the breakout rooms. Decide on your annual goals and enter them into Rotary Club Central. So again, it's, we've got to have goals or milestones or things that we are going to strive to accomplish. They should be tangible, things that we are, realistically we can achieve. And I don't know if we have the data on this, but I would expect that clubs that have been shown to be most successful in the district have plans and goals. That's my sense, but I would think that if we were to take a look at that the clubs that do have plans and goals tend to be more successful. As we go through this, if you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat or raise your hand. And if someone can point out to me, if someone does raise their hand, let me know, because I'm not seeing the people right now. Hold club meetings to keep members engaged and informed. And again, this was 80%, which is great. And there are some suggestions here, which we will get into, to kind of keep the meetings engaged and informational, and other things that we can do to make them even more engaging. Communicate openly in your club. This is really interesting, and I remember when the district was going through its planning process, we spent a lot of time thinking about and understanding effective communication. So it's one thing to communicate, but is it resonating? Are the people that are being communicated to, are they getting the message? One thing we've learned over the years is just sending out emails, and that's all it is. It may not be as effective as it was, years ago. So we need to think about other approaches, perhaps, to communicate openly in your club. And we will take a look at brand center just to make sure that we're using the right brand for Rotary. So that's really important. There's a few here that I think we scored low on that I think are going to be really interesting today. Preparing members for future roles to smooth leadership transitions. Yeah, exactly. Correct. Ride the brand, as we say. So preparing members for future roles. So part of planning, as we know, is preparing people to step in. And I think it's always a good idea to be looking around within your club and maybe even potential or new members to kind of get a sense of who could step in. And then once they're identified and once they are in agreement, to kind of groom them and onboard them, if you will, so that they are prepared to be effective in leadership roles. And that's an ongoing process. So we're going to talk about that. Adapting your club's bylaws to reflect the way the club works. I don't know about you all, but this became kind of abundantly clear when the pandemic hit, because all of a sudden we had Zoom or something like Zoom as a way that we were conducting meetings, and then we got into hybrid meetings. And you know, I don't think our bylaws predicted you know, remote meetings, but that's what we had. And now I think what we're finding is that even though the pandemic is no longer, which we're very happy about, the notion of hybrid meetings and having people from anywhere in the world be a speaker, and having people, you know, even members of clubs not be geographically in the same area, has advanced our clubs. And so here's an example where the bylaws really had to be adjusted in response to a very terrible circumstance. And yet now, I mean, many clubs are still keeping it because they're finding that it's a more effective model for how the club functions. So we will take a look at that. That was just one example. There's many. And as a reminder, you know, the bylaws should be reviewed and adjusted regularly to make sure that it reflects the way the club works, and even a little bit of maybe some club, you know, intentions of the club down the road, things that you all want to consider for your clubs. John Morrison, you're on, correct? So John can talk about club bylaws with respect to something like forming a satellite club, for example, or, you know, different club models should be reflected in club bylaws. I don't know, John, if you wanted to say anything about that before we.
It's still a work in process. And as soon as we get one, I'll share it with you.
Awesome. So a lot to think about here. Developing strong relationships within your club. I think this one scored fairly high, if I recall. But a lot of this is not just with people who have been in the club in a while, and you'll see this bullet here about sit with different people at each meeting, but really with new members, you know, getting them integrated into the club, getting them to feel welcome, and to build those relationships so they don't feel like they're unique, that they're not yet part of the club culture and all of that. So strong relationships within your club is very important, obviously. Making sure all members are involved in activities that genuinely interest them. And one of the reasons why, and I think it was District Governor nominee Tom's suggestion that we have member engagement be one of our categories, is that for a vibrant club, you've got to have members who are active and engaged. And so items like these are ones to kind of think about how to improve member engagement. So really important. And getting doing some kind of a member survey to make sure that the leadership knows what the members are interested in, because interests do change. It's always a good idea to make sure we've got that information, and getting new members involved early. Coaching new and continuing members in leading. So this is a little bit like the preparing members for future roles. This one is really more about coaching and training and getting them prepared. So the actual mechanics of doing that. And if your club has a district trainer or a training committee, those would likely be the people that would be very involved in helping the the members grow. You know, it's hard to be a vibrant club if the members in the club are not continually learning and growing. And then creating practical committees. And you probably all have seen this about, you know, if you're a small club, you may not have the same number of committees, and that's fine. The main thing is that they be practical, that they're serving a purpose, that they're not just doing things, but they're doing things to help the club accomplish the goals that we've identified up here and are part of the strategic plan that we've developed for the club. So the practical committees just means that they're integrated into what the club is trying to accomplish. And so the work that the club needs to do is kind of divvied up into working groups, if you will. So these are the 10 items that have been in this Be a Vibrant Club, I think, since it started. And again, all those other things that we think about that are important, the service projects, the global grants, all of that are embedded in these 10 items. So as we get into the breakout groups, we will get into these in much more detail. Okay, any questions or comments about these items or what we're going to be doing when we get into breakout groups? No silos.
Jeff, I have a few comments.
Go ahead, Tom. And I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, maybe we'll inspire some other comments. I'm on the topic of prepare members for future roles and coach new and continuing members in leading. To me, that's a question of sustainability and being able to make sure that whatever committee, for example, that you are leading, that should you for some reason be unable to lead it, that there's somebody else on the committee that can just step into your role. So I just think that it's our responsibility as leaders to make sure that there are leaders behind us that understand what we're doing and that are able to step into our shoes if for some reason we're unable, even if just for one meeting we're unable to be there. It's freeing for those of us that are in a leadership role to know that there's others in the organization that can step into our role if need be. And it's also really vital to the health of the club. The other comment that I wanted to make has to do with the idea of developing strong relationships. It's not only important to be aware of people that are in your club, that are there at the meeting, but be aware of those people that aren't at your meeting as well. Those Rotarians that aren't showing up on a regular basis or that miss a meeting, not because we're nosy and so forth, but because we care about them. And if they haven't been there for a few meetings, have somebody assigned as sort of the liaison to check in on them and find out how they're doing. Maybe they're sick, maybe they're, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's a win if you give them a call and let them know you care about them. And then for those visitors that show up and then leave, capture the information and have somebody assigned to follow up with them and ask them what they thought of the meeting. Do you plan coming back? Just that gives them a friend in the club that they didn't have before. And then for new members, we have mentors assigned to all of our new members. That's different than the person that sponsored them. So you have the sponsor that they already know probably, and then the new, another person who's their mentor who can kind of lead them through the process of becoming a full-fledged member. Just a few things to add to what you said.
Sunny?
Thank you, Jeff. Hi, everyone. One quick thing. At the top of that brochure, there are a couple of lines that I think deserve to be underscored. Vibrant clubs engage their members, conduct meaningful projects, and try new ideas. List new ideas your club wants to try, and create a plan for increasing community interest and attracting more members. I call this to your attention now because at the end of today's session, I'll be inviting you to write down one or two next steps. And the next steps that will make a difference are the ones that increase community interest, attract new members, and make your club vibrant. So keep that in mind as we go through.
You know, one thing that one way you may want to think about this, especially given what Sonny said, is that we often think about our Rotary clubs in the what we do, the bulleted list of things. We did this year, we did this that year. These 10 items are kind of like one level below the what we did. It's more foundational. What infrastructure do we need to set up so that we can do the what's? And if you don't have the foundational elements, it becomes a lot harder to do the things that the club wants to do. So I don't know if that helps, but it seems like these 10 items are really foundational. And if as we go through this, if it's really making sense to you, then energy needs to be put into those foundational elements. You can't just say we're going to do a service project. It's all of that planning and infrastructure and the member engagement so that all of those projects that the club wants to do will be successful or will be more likely to be successful.
Jeff, before we move to Yasser, I want to just point out what Martine put in the chat. I think it's a great idea. Direct you to that before we move on.
Oh, yes. So can everyone see the chat?
So just, if you don't mind, each time we have each week that we get together, we identify a Rotarian that we haven't seen in a while. We put cards on the tables, and everybody that is there, we ask them to write a message to the Rotarian that we haven't seen in a bit. So we collect those cards, and then we get them to that Rotarian to let them know that we're thinking of them. And a lot of times we see them the following week or the week after because they're like, oh, they're thinking of me, and then they come back to the meeting. So just something that we do.
And it works very well because after we send that out 2 weeks later or 1 week later, we see them show up. So it definitely works.
And we have that other category kind of, which are the people that have been attending by Zoom. So we're seeing them, but we may not have the same relationship as we have when we're sitting with them and we're in fellowship. And so that Zoom piece is something we have to think about as well. Sandy, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. A while back, I was lucky to be involved in working with Disney, and one of Disney's big focuses is on telling the story of Disney to their new employees, or they call them cast members, so that they are embraced by the Disney story. So for instance, for Rotary, for our new members, I think, and our old members, sometimes they forget too how Rotary started in the first place. Why are we all here in the first place? And starting with Rotary International, and then our own club story. How did our club get started, and what the history of our own club is. And I think that makes people feel like their club is the family, and it really embraces them into the organization and the structure, and makes them feel more involved and included right away, because then everybody knows the same story. Thanks.
That is awesome. Thank you. Any other questions or feedback? If not, we're going to take a few minutes before the break just to kind of walk through how the breakout sessions are going to work.
I just had one comment that it occurred to me as in this discussion. It surprised me that there wasn't as much leadership planning, and that scored pretty low. And then I saw the strategic planning was also scored very low. So that it seems like there's a strong correlation. If you don't have a succession plan or preparing the future leaders, you can't execute a strategic plan. So I think there's a strong correlation between those. Just a comment.
You know, it's one thing to have someone identified as an incoming leader. It's another thing to have that person be prepared. You know, we talk a lot about that at PETS, don't we? And in many ways, you know, if an incoming president is identified a year prior, why would they be waiting for pets to start their training? Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I suspect that clubs have strategic plans, as we do at Rotary Club of Santa Fe, that we don't see very often. It's a plan that exists, and it's on a hard drive, or it's printed and in a folder. So I'm curious for feedback from everybody on how to take that strategic plan and make it a regular part of Rotary life, so that everybody knows it exists and knows where it is and knows that we're on track. Is there any way to kind of bring that into the weekly meeting or maybe the monthly meeting to make it a living document? Any ideas? Sandy,
I think it'd be wonderful if that were on the weekly or bi-weekly newsletter that goes out, or whatever type of communication that a club does. Why would you not put it out to the full membership at any given opportunity?
And maybe a couple of charts on progress towards the goals of the club.
Well, Tom, on that subject, if I may, we have that strategic plan at the district level, and something we toyed with was developing a fun, interactive way to stay on track of it, which was developing the passport that says every time you do one initiative, you get a stamp on your passport. Every time you bring in a new member, you stamp a page that says you brought a new member. So printing out a passport for every member, but it's in line with the strategic plan. So a lot of times it doesn't have to be something serious and formal with a presentation or a document. It could be something that's creative in a fun manner, but it all feeds into the goals of a strategic plan.
Yeah, great idea. Sandy, you have your hand up.
Oh, thanks. Ideally, in my opinion, the strategic plan should be reviewed at board meetings. Well, first of all, the strategic plan should be developed in concert with the committees. And what we did is in our club is we used the district strategic plan as a template. And then we adapted it to our own club because the district, of course, had things about public image and membership and this, that, and the other thing. And that falls in line with what our club would do. So we adapted it to that. And then we review it at the board meetings on a quarterly basis. And Don is right. Our club members need to know that too. So I think having those club assemblies would be a good option to do that, putting it in newsletters. We're really good at talking at board meetings and talking amongst ourselves, but I don't think we're very good at communicating that back to our members. And the other thing I'll say is with presidents, district has done a great job with the district governors of passing the baton and keeping the sites of the strategic plan along the way. Sometimes I think at the local clubs, we have a president and the president has their own idea about how they want to do things without in a vacuum, without realizing with the strategic plan, it's just a piece in time. It's not like, you know, this, that, we're done. It's passing the baton and keeping things moving in a forward direction. So I think at PETS, that's something we really need to stress is when you're going to be a president, don't think of it as like my theme this year and I'm doing this. You know, our theme is the Rotary theme, and we need to move that right along. And I think that's part of our problem with some of these clubs. Anyway, this is my opinion. Thank you.
I think so. The district plan that Yasser was referring to, at the first page, there's like a preamble that kind of explains the importance of the plan, and then Governor Richard and Governor-elect Yasser signed it. And Tom would have signed it, but if I recall, the plan was developed before Tom was identified as the nominee designate. Otherwise, we would have had Tom's signature as well. But the sense is, as Sandy was pointing out, it's not just this year. the future leaders are in on the planning, because the intent is that it be a 3 to 5 year plan. And that does show their commitment. And Tom put a nice note in the chat. Perfect. Hey, any other questions, comments, feedback before we take a break and go into breakout rooms?
So we're going to take a break, right, for a few minutes, and then when will the breakout rooms start?
So we can take us, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we can take a slightly longer break and reconvene. The intent was to reconvene at 10:10 in breakout rooms. So we can take like a 10-minute break and do that. What'll happen is Eric, who's hosting the meeting, is going to put you all into one of the 3 rooms, and you will be rotating each half hour into different rooms. So that will start at 10:10. And again, that'll be the opportunity to take a really deep dive into each of these elements and ask more questions. And then we'll come back as a full group, and Sunny will kind of walk us through the next steps, like he mentioned earlier.
And Jeff, everybody has already been assigned to a breakout room, so when we start, you shouldn't have to do anything. You'll just end up where you're supposed to be.
Okay, so just to be clear, then when we come back at 10:10, you're already going to be in a breakout room.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start that. I'll do it about 5 minutes before we come back.
Okay. Anyone have anything else? Anything? If Governor Richard is still on, any words of wisdom before we take our break?
So we can stay on if we want and talk amongst ourselves, right? Eric?
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, no pressure, Jeff. Words of wisdom. I will just tell you this, that if you're not evolving as a club, you're dying. That's a basic scientific principle. If you're not evolving, you're withering away. So I would encourage you to do whatever you can to always improve your club. And I think you'll find some great ideas as we move into these breakout sessions. That's always where the brain power exists, is the breakout sessions. So looking forward to it.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and take a break, and we will reconvene at 10:10 in breakout rooms. Thank you all very much.